Hey guys, happy February. It's already February. It's February 7th, and I wanted to make a quick video today about a few different things. So, if you're new to this channel, obviously I like to talk about tech sales, I like to talk about self-improvement, career consulting, career counseling for those people who want to better themselves, especially either financially or in their career, obviously, or the job market. So, we talk a lot about those things. And if this isn't your first time, you guys know that I like to definitely look into self improvement, um, basically, anyway, biohacking, different ways on how can I improve. And I like to test these things on myself. So I thought I would make this video as a series, a lot of different things, and start doing this on a weekly basis of combining all the things I'm learning, tell you guys a little bit about what's going on, some of the things that I'm learning, some things I'm testing on myself. If anybody's interested, I don't know. But I find it pretty fascinating. And, you should always have, I'm always looking for ways on how can I get a little bit better without being like so crazy where it takes away from life. So I have definitely some friends that are like so into it that it almost becomes like a chore, and it should never be that way. You got to find the balance of like constant improvement and what can I get better at, and know what the metrics and the score is, but also you only live once. There's a balance. Okay. So anyway, some things that I've been researching, and as I drink tea today, or sorry, coffee. I'm drinking coffee today. So today's topic is about coffee versus intermittent fasting. And I was looking at some data today, as well as like a bunch of different resources. Found some interesting information out, but let's talk about this. So, if you're not familiar with intermittent fasting, what is intermittent fasting? Intermittent fasting is um, going without food, any type of calorie intake for about a window of time. That's time restricted to eating. So, what's very popular these days is what's called the 16-hour, 8-hour window, which means that for 8 hours you eat, 16 hours you don't eat until the next day. What's common for a lot of people is they stop eating at 8 o'clock at night, and then they don't eat until noon the next day, which is about 16 hours. And it's funny because breakfast, if you break down the word break and a fast, you're breaking your fast, breakfast. So, what's common is the 16-hour window. People go up to 18 hours, sometimes 20 hours, sometimes 24 hours. I've done a 3-day bone broth fast. If you guys have seen that video, on a regular basis, I do intermittent fasting, and it has a lot of different benefits. When you're starting off, you should only start between like 12 and 14 hours and work your way up. Don't want to start on like the 20-hour thing. But it's very beneficial. It basically detoxes your entire body. People notice a lot of differences with weight. You're trying to lose weight. This is an excellent thing. I recommend looking up alternative day fasting, as well as so you can lose weight. It detoxes your body and detoxes your organs, and at the same time, it balances your hormones. So, for example, if testosterone, which is a big word these days, testosterone, it can help improve and increase your testosterone as well. For ladies, estrogen, if you're estrogen dominant, me and my fiance both have done intermittent fasting. We do it pretty regularly. I used to be a little bit more hardcore. We're doing it like every single day, and now I've kind of like pushed back a little bit. I still do 2 or 3 days a week doing intermittent fasting, and I usually do about 16, 18, or 20 hours, depending on how I'm feeling at the time. And the key thing is you want to make sure you're breaking your fast the right way. I like to have a little bit of bone broth, which has tons of protein to break my fast. And there's a lot of great videos out there on this. And so the thing about this is about coffee. So I've been drinking a lot of coffee, and always been a bit of a coffee addict. It's a long story, but I used to do a lot of English teaching in different countries, and I'd go to cafes, and you had to buy a cup of coffee. You had to, just to stay there. And I ended up like having like 3 or 4 cups of coffee a day without knowing the consequences of caffeine, of addiction, anything like that. So I'd be very jittery. I went camping once, I remember, and they didn't have coffee, and I remember just really being out of it. Not fun, but memorable. So, coffee versus intermittent fasting, should you have it? What are the side effects? I think you guys are going to get some value out of this. So, coffee has tannic acid. It has tannic acid inside of it, which a lot of people don't realize is actually the acid they use to tan leather. Ugh. Yeah. Now, tannic acid is not in tea, funny enough, okay? So if you eat coffee on an empty stomach, this could be problematic and cause a bit of a protein deficiency. And if you're also having probiotics, for example, if you have probiotics, you want to have a probiotic the night before, and you should be having probiotics. If you have a probiotic and then coffee right afterward, you're basically killing the probiotic. It completely kills it. So you're nullifying it. You're just wasting your money. So make sure you're aware of that. If you're on regular days, if you're having coffee, the best thing to do is to have a little bit of protein 5 minutes before coffee. This will help with a protein deficiency. Okay, so having like a little bit of piece of chicken, half a hard-boiled egg, some almonds, have a little bit of that, wait 5 minutes, and then have the coffee. Okay, this will boost your testosterone, and it will also increase the collagen. So you're gonna notice some differences in your hair, your nails, your skin tone. Okay, really, really good for that. Now, here's what I would recommend. So if you're doing intermittent fasting, I would recommend having tea instead. I used to have coffee, maybe I wasn't noticing it, but I used to have coffee during intermittent fasting, and I would recommend instead changing to tea. If you really need caffeine in the morning, go to green tea. Green tea doesn't have the tannic acid, and it does have caffeine. So it's a really good alternative. Having green tea on intermittent fasting days, and then non-intermittent fasting days, having a little bit of protein in the morning, wait 5 minutes, and then having the coffee. And you're going to notice you're basically getting the benefits of both. On regular days, having that protein, balancing your hormones, and then on intermittent fasting days, making sure that you're still balancing your hormones and getting that weight and detoxing your body. So something to consider, always make sure you're drinking plenty of water. You should be drinking half your body weight. So I'm about what was the last time I weighed? I'm like 180, 190. Anyway, I should be having between 90 to 100 ounces of water per day. Okay, that's gonna flush my entire system. Really good to do. So that's kind of what I've been learning on health, for example. I hope that was helpful. And then a lot of different things. I'm actually reading a few new books. I just finished the book Being Rich by J. Paul Getty. Really interesting book. And it was originally a book in the 1950s. And J. Paul Getty, if you're not aware, there's a Getty Museum in LA, for example. He was one of the richest people in the world at one point. Was a little bit of an oil baron. And he wrote by himself. He didn't use a ghostwriter. He wrote himself a series of articles in Playboy magazine back in the 50s. And Playboy, it's not what it is now. Playboy back in the day was a little bit like Men's Journal. It talked about business. It talked about, dress for success. It talked about all these different things, and women, of course, but it wasn't about what it is now. So J. Paul Getty wrote all these articles, and those articles over time combined to create that book, Being Rich. And he talks about a few different amazing things. Very interesting. He was a little bit ahead of his time where he really concentrated on the metrics. He invested wildly in art. He invested in real estate. He talks about his times that were good and bad. He talks about his wins and successes. He also talks about the level of his financial literacy. And a lot of the other CEOs during that time did not look at the 80-20 rule. They didn't look at the unit economics on a daily basis. And he really did. And those were some of his secrets. So it's a great book. I'll probably do a review on it later. Right now, I just finished chapter 1 of, if anybody's heard of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki. This is a book from 2008. It's called Increase Your Financial IQ. And very interestingly enough, it was made in 2008 when the market crashed. And he's talking about things to prepare for the next recession for 10 years down the road. And I'm reading it and I swear, I'm like, this is weirdly kind of what's happening right now, right? He was projecting for 2018. It's 2023 right now. You can kind of see some similarities. So it's a very interesting book. I'll let you guys know how it is. Let's see here. Other things. So something that blew my mind. If you guys aren't aware, obviously I've talked about TechnoTutor in the past. It's a big tool that I use to improve vocabulary, improve kind of my a lot of my comprehension, English comprehension, everything like that. It's got a great reviews, and I've been using it for 2 years. So if you haven't seen some of the videos I've left out, definitely do that. But I felt, I don't know, inclined to look up literacy rates in the US. And I was kind of stunned. This wasn't political or anything like that. I was just kind of curious, like, what are the literacy rates in the US compared to the world? So I looked up this, there's a Canadian standard, and it's ones that do studies of literacy rates all throughout the world. One is called PIAAC, the Program for the International Assessment of Adult Competencies, and they rate literacy on a 1 to 5 scale. 1 being the worst, you're basically almost illiterate. 5 being amazing, your genius level, you're like a speed reader, you're kicking ass, that's great. So 1 through 5. And they've graded, looking at everything, a third of Americans cannot read past the 6th grade level. That is stunning to me. A third of Americans can't read past the 6th grade level. And this is taking into their comprehension ability, their words per minute that they're doing, to be able to retain information. Now, 1/3 can't read past the 6th grade level. 2/3 of Americans can't read past the 8th grade level. That was also pretty shocking. Now, it goes on to say that only 13% of Americans have a great literacy rate. Okay, 13% of Americans have a great literacy rate. They're at level 4. Only 13%. So you're looking at, okay, like rounding it down a little bit, 10% of the entire US population. So I don't know what the population is right now. It's probably, last I checked, it was like 280 million. 280 million people in the US. 28 million have a great literacy rate. Very interesting to know about. Now, talk about this one. Only 2% of only 2% of Americans have an amazing literacy rate where they're at level 5. They have the best. Okay? So that's very interesting to know. We talk about like, hey, 2% of the 2% of the population owns 90% of the resources, assets, and the wealth. And I keep finding these correlations between literacy rate and your probability of income. Another thing that they talked about, so level, a third of the US, we'll go back to that statistic, a third of the US who can't read past the 6th grade level, they read between 53 to 139 words per minute. Okay? So very interesting to do. A third of the US only can read 53 to 139 words per minute. So if you're reading a page, or if you time them for a minute, they're only picking up and able to comprehend that amount of words. It doesn't mean if they're speed reading, it's comprehension. How much is actually the retention value? So yeah, you can read it, you can read fast, but how much are you actually retaining? How much is your memory actually logging? That's what's important, okay? So a third of the US can only do up to 139 words per minute. Another third of the US reads between 139 and 204 words per minute, okay? So again, very interesting. You're looking at 2/3 of Americans are under 200 words per minute. Very interesting. So I took it upon myself to do my own reading assessment, and TechnoTutor has a free one. If you want the assessment, feel free to message me. I could send it over to you for free. I thought it was very interesting, and I did it. And my words per minute was about 215. So it was slightly above average, which is good. My comprehension I did really, really well above average. However, it still was at a high school level. It wasn't that great. So I was a little like, oh shit, I need to boost this up. So it's very interesting. One of the promises with TechnoTutor is that you can increase your words per minute, your comprehension. And I haven't been following the levels as much as I should. There's kind of levels, there's 1 through 15 levels that if you do it, you'll get to this end result. And I've been more focused, and it's kind of like the basics versus subject specific. And I did subject specific on relationships, assets, financial education. I did that first. And if you see the video, you guys, I talk about how I've really increased my income, found the love of my life, all these things from that. But I haven't been doing the basics, which is the thing that's going to increase your words per minute. So that's going to be another target. It's not going to be overnight. It's going to take, this is going to be a year by year play, but something to consider. So the words per minute for the top level people, again, for the ones that were level 4 and 5, those top level people, the people that are the top 2% and the top 13% of US Americans have a reading ability, words per minute comprehension, between 375 and 500. 375 and 500. Very interesting. So that's a goal that I would strive for, is getting to your comprehension ability being at that level 4 and 5, getting your words per minute to 375 to 500. So I'm going to be testing this out myself. I wouldn't wait for me though. If you want to improve your life, definitely utilize it. Utilize all these tools. And then I had heard that the person who founded TechnoTutor, after going through it, it wasn't overnight. It took like several years, minimum 7 years. But he was able to reach words per minute of 1,400. 1,400. So that's pretty astounding. If you're able to retain that information and that amount of processing ability of your brain is like a computer in a lot of ways. That processing ability, that would be phenomenal. If I can if I'm at 215 right now, and if I got to 1,400 the next 7 years, that's, times 7 my ability to process information. I mean, damn. And those 7 years are going to pass anyway. They're going to pass anyway. Might as well use them and just see how far you can go in life. So that was very interesting. Again, it started as just I'm just curious about the literacy rates. And the biggest takeaway is, hey, the average person can't read. The average American is between the 6th and 8th grade level, or they're less than that. The top 2% to 12%, top 2 to 12%, read between 375 to 500 words per minute. Very interesting. And, the only things that I know that can actually increase your processes, actually there's 2 things I should say. The only 2 things, number 1 is TechnoTutor, and the second thing is cleanses. So detoxing your body increases the speed of your brain, okay, which is why I'm a big proponent of this. And we've talked about this in the past, cleanses. Doing a bone broth cleanse for 3 days actually completely resets your system. Doing a colon cleanse, doing a liver cleanse, a gallbladder cleanse, kidney cleanse, doing a fatty cell tissue cleanse, doing a parasite cleanse is another one. So heavy metal detox cleanse. I haven't done the heavy metal of parasites, but I've done all those other ones. And I just noticed when I'm in my day-to-day or at work and business, there's times where I come to conclusions faster than a lot of my associates. And I'm not trying to brag. It's just I've noticed that the speed has gone up over time. So some food for thought there. Some other training, I found this quote the other day. This is from Zig Ziglar. I thought it was very cool. Success is not what you've done compared to what others have done. It's what you've done compared to what you could have done. It's basically just never compare yourself to others all the time. Everybody's on their own challenges and roadmap, and they're all going against their own journey. Always focus on yourself and how far you can go. You're only battling yourself, right? You don't want to be constantly looking back in time, regret, what if, I should have, I could have. Always focus on yourself and project yourself and challenge yourself to be the best version of you, and just hold yourself accountable that way. So I thought that was a good quote, quote of the day. Anyway, I'll go ahead and end it right there. Hope everybody's doing well. I hope this was helpful. If it was helpful, please comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you have any questions about anything, feel free to reach out. I'll include my contact information below. If you'd like to have a free little consultation call with me, I usually do set aside 15-20 minutes for people who need some help. Feel free to text me as well, or send me an email with your contact information. We can arrange a time. All right, guys, I'll catch you later. Have a good one. Cheers.